Oh, there's 600 break.
Log into YouTube so you can type. All right, all right, all right. How is everybody doing tonight? Who's joining us this evening? What's going on, Chris Allen? What's going on, Crocs? What's going on, KCK? Hello, Jay Constant. Hello, E. Demur. Hello, Hold LTC. Hello, Claiborne Taylor. Good evening, Andy. Ching Ching. Hello.
We literally
to
have
you.
to do all of them.
Yes, we
every
have
single
to
one.
acknowledge everyone.
Okay.
Hello, Skater. What's going on? Hello, Joe. My two friends. My 2 cents. What's going on, guys? I am joined tonight by my good buddy here, Big Ched. Say hello to Big Ched. Say hello to Big Ched's in the.
Hello, Big Cheds.
Oh my God! How's everybody doing tonight? It's Saturday Night Live. Listen, I'm here with Cheds. We're hanging out. We're watching some football through the day today. And we wanted to come live to you to just talk a little bit of Bitcoin briefly, as we got some interesting price action going on right now. And because Cheds is here with us, I wanted to, very excited to hear his thoughts on, not just today's price action, but just the overall kind of sense of what we're seeing in the markets, over the past several weeks here. Obviously, we've had this pretty nasty bear break a couple days ago, and tomorrow we actually close out our weekly candle. So we're basically seeing this kind of size price action in the past few days here. So Cheds, before we get into this,
how would you describe the price action last few days?
Before we get into this, remember, guys can follow me on Twitter.
Okay.
I am at Big Chonis. I'm a cryptocurrency trader, an investor, a mentor, a chart psychologist. I'm also a feature contributor to Bitcoin Live, and I'm a YouTube broadcaster. Make sure you guys follow me on YouTube. I am at Chonis Trading.
Okay.
Love having my 3,312 subscribers. Always looking to add to that. Remember, you guys can sign up for Bitcoin Live. I am a contributor, as well as Big Cheds is a founding member of the Bitcoin Live platform as well. And also, I am offering new mentoring for the month of July, still scheduling. It's an online personalized mentoring where you and I talk via Skype. You guys are able to see my screen. And basically, in the time we spend together, about an hour, we can go over, trading fundamentals, how to spot, buy, and sell signals, and basically kind of formulate a trading plan, based on your specific trading style. Everybody has a unique individual kind of the way that they approach the crypto market. So it's a good time for you and me to get together with a one-on-one discussion, and hopefully basically help you become a better trader, and at least give you that more confidence.
Yeah, let me just speak on that. I mean, I've seen that you do a really good job with that, because I think people know you by now. They've seen all the videos you've done. And they like you're gonna give your honest opinion. You're not trying to sell them something. Because you enjoy teaching things. With your friends, certain signals, learning different styles. So I think for the people who want to have someone sit and just give focus on them, give their full attention, I think this is a good option for them.
And listen, Chad, like, we've been there from the beginning when we were noobs in this. We were learning how to trade and learning how to read charts. You always have to start somewhere, and I wish when I was starting out, when you were starting out, there was somebody like me where I could really kind of.
Well, I had someone like that, and that's why
true.
I started. I had someone who really
Yeah.
showed. I mean, I felt like they were showing me into the matrix, and that was part of why I did my blog, Chad's blog, and so you've taught me things, I've taught you, and it's been like wildfire. Kind of when you've kind of opened yourself up, and people have seen what you have to offer. So I think I definitely think this is a good thing.
That.
Yep.
So guys, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter DM or email me bigchonis@gmail.com. All right, Chad. So listen, we closed up our daily candle about an hour and a half ago. I kind of would like to start there and just kind of get a sense, just looking at just the candles themselves.
Yeah.
I'm on the daily chart here, Chads. Just kind of get a sense of
what server are we, Big Chonis?
We're on the USD Coinbase exchange.
Coinbase, okay.
Yeah, and so listen, let's just focus in on the past couple of days here, price action. What are your thoughts? What are you seeing here?
Well, I mean, we have nearly a Maribosa, not really shaving top or bottom, but a big red candle. It's kind of a capitulation candle, decent volume behind it. Notably, so that's the most important candle. We're looking at the past. So this is today the fourth candle here, the current one. So we kind of let's try to disregard that candle.
Sure. Yeah,
so we're talking about three candles, right? Which this candle is the most volume. So that's your primary candle. Everything flows through that. The momentum flows through that. Okay. So we have that. We have the high wave spinning top, right? We have the spinning top, the small real candle body, the higher, long upper and lower shadow. And then we have a hammer here. So that's notable. But I'm curious on this hammer. Does that low breach the low of that first candle?
You mean the wick?
The lower wick, the lower shadow. No, not this one, but this one prior.
The one that's lower low yesterday.
What's the low in that? It's like just a little bit lower, right?
So the low yesterday was 35.57.
All right.
The low before was 35.60.
So let's go devil's advocate, right? Okay. If you're a bull and you're making the bull case, and you say you're a pumper, okay, and you're like, I want oh, it's a hammer. Okay, is that a hammer? Okay, not only it's a hammer, but then you look closer, right? You know how they say, don't look in a horse's mouth, or don't look a gift horse in the mouth. You look this gift horse in the mouth. The hammer, there's no volume behind it, and it breached the low of the candle 2 candles before it.
So what are you saying?
I'm saying this is a potentially false bullish signal. This hammer, you need to kind of perceive this hammer. I think is bearish. I think you're going to see bearish continuation. Is what I'm seeing.
What is the volume profile combined with that?
There's no response. The bulls initially rejected lower prices, but not strongly. There's no follow-up buying. You're seeing more indecision, but you're seeing a bear is rejecting higher prices here in this high wave spinning top. You see the rejection. Look at that. Look at these lows. Look at these highs rather. The highs are lower highs here, so it's kind of being pushed lower. We're getting close to a pivot. If you draw a line here, Big Chonis, like that diagonally, we're getting close to kind of this pattern is going to resolve itself in the next day or so. Is my view on that.
And do you have a gut as to if we're going to go higher or lower at this point? Where is the path?
Let's look at some oscillators. I mean, I need more information. Sure. If you're going to ask me to make, I want to see. I want to see some more information, Big Chonis.
All right. Well, the reason I bring that up is because we have to ask ourselves, like, what's the path of least resistance here? What do we know that's more strong here? Do we have our support areas that are more strong in this area here, or do we have a situation where we have a better chance to basically range higher? Now, the reason I ask this question is because the way we fell through the $4,000 area to like almost a $450 drop there weren't any buyers in this zone here. There weren't a lot of buyers that were saying, oh, I feel Bitcoin at 38, 37, 36.
It wasn't strong support.
Correct. So because we never found any of those supports in that range there, how can you basically think that, I mean, I'm not saying you, but how can the bullish theme be for now, the sense that we can then drift again higher?
I have an idea. So let's take that idea. Let's kind of examine that idea. Let's unpack that idea. So let's add the Bollinger Bands. Right, can we add the Bollinger Bands?
Absolutely.
Let's start with the Bollinger Bands. Let's understand our position in channels. So you added the Bollinger Bands. I'm noting the price it's at the lower Bollinger Band. Okay, so it's at potential support. Do me a favor. Can you draw me a line from the highs of that early to mid-December? If you take the peaks here of this early to mid-December, and then you take the lows here around the 18th of December, you draw a line across, you take these lows here. So we just kind of get it kind of horizontal. So look at that. All right, so what are we noticing here? We're noticing when the price dropped through this level, it found initial resistance right here at that $3,600 level. When you had your breakout about a week or two later, that level served as support on the pullback. So that's an area of note, right? We can't just ignore it. So there's your bullish case. You have a bullish convergence potentially where you have the lower Bollinger Band and you have the logical horizontal support. There's some lower shadows here. You have a hammer, but it's weak volume, so that's why I'm cautious. Can we see an oscillator? Can we kind of get some context?
Well, let's stick with the Bollinger Bands for a moment here. I think it's interesting to note that if we go back to our 6K before we had our break here, the tightness in our Bollinger Bands was very from like, we were like what, like $200 basically separated these, and on the daily chart it had been pretty much by far the tightest we had seen, and the thinking about that is that our Bollingers, especially on higher time frames, tighten up. They basically represent a more volatile move is fast approaching. So we fast forward here, we had our bear break, our Bollingers expanded very immensely here, and then a lot of our sideways ranging price action has allowed our Bollingers to tighten up here. Now I would say a few things about this. For starters, even though we are tighter on our Bollinger Bands, we're nowhere near the tightness that we had still seen back when we had our bearish break there. So for now, the ranging in this area, we have basically a firm top right now, a little bit right around 4K, and what's a little scary now for the bulls is the fact that our lower BB is actually angled down here. So our lower support,
but not drastically. It's kind of casually. It's kind of casually going down because you kind of had the drop and you have the pinching here because you already had that $450 move. So we're clearly, X, Y, and Z, blah blah blah. We're in a bearish continuation pattern,
right?
But we're at support.
I think it's interesting to see is also the fact that the middle Bollinger for several days here, almost a few weeks, was able to hold support. Right?
Absolutely, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, plenty of times.
I always say that it's basically three levels here. You have your lower, your middle, and upper, and if you're able to hold above your middle, you're always going to target your upper Bollinger until that middle support is lost on the closing candle. That's when you basically say, if we can't hold the middle support, then the lower BB is definitely that target there.
So but let's get I want to back out, go weekly. I want to look at weekly chart, but before we do, oscillators.
All right. Well,
so why don't you tell us what you see?
Well, okay, so I'm on my daily RSI here, and I always like to say about when we're over a 50 area on our daily RSI, that's definitely an area there where we're able to get that continuation of bullish momentum. It was encouraging that after we were able to find support here as we started the new year, ranging higher, and then our bull break there brought us above 50. So not only were we above 50, we actually had a little running room, and that was quickly basically stamped down. So two things I see here. We're sub 50, which gives the bears an advantage, but we're also holding where we found actually previous support last time when we actually had that bounce there. So this is a key area, like literally right here, Chad's around 42.
Well, let me ask you, why is 50 so important? Is it because it's a psychological number? Are you seeing some kind of price correlation? Why is that number important to you?
So we talk about relative strength index and kind of how we use that in our overall context. So if we're looking at an RSI that's sub 50, especially we know if we're sub the 30 area or above the 70 area, we have, a very weak bearish market or a very strong bullish market. So obviously everything in between is subjective. But if you think about being above 50 as being above that median line there,
so it's psychological.
Yeah, but we also see historical too, where when we are able to get above 50, that's when our bullish advance can really take hold and we can pierce those 70 areas.
Okay.
What really stands out, last thing I'll say about the RSI, is we consistently are putting in a pattern of lower lows.
Lower highs.
Lower lows.
You're putting to highs.
You're right, 100%. Lower highs.
So can I see the OBV? Let me just see the OBV. All right. So, all right.
It seems to be very close to the price.
It's a little bit, probably a bullish divergence from the price. Let me back out just short term.
Here,
where's the OBV?
Let's do this. I can do this.
Okay. No, I know one of the things you do in your mentoring, Big Chonis, is you do teach people how to set up TradingView, and I know you're always showing me like little tricks, things
Lots of cool things.
Yeah, I can't believe there's a lot of really cool things. So I appreciate when you can show those things.
It looks very similar. Let me get rid of the Bollingers here for a second.
All right.
If you kind of see our price action here, there's our dip.
Yeah.
Now, what's kind of interesting is even with our dip there, we have a slight higher low.
You could have an inverted head and shoulders, inverted three Buddha, three rivers bottom, whatever you want to call it. You clearly have three potential lows here, or at least arguably. No, this could be your third low here. Over here at the right. This could be now your third low.
You mean this is the head?
Yeah. Could you just consider that part of the kind of in between the head and the shoulder?
I think this is invalidated.
Okay, let's just back out. Let's just back out. You can still put in the third low. You could very easily say, here's your first low back in the 25th of December.
Okay.
Here's your second low here in the 16th or 17th. And let's say you bottom here at like 35, okay? And you bounce from there. Is that not inarguably potentially a third low because it's lower than this low here? So it would be your basically your third cluster of candles. It would be third lows. You could still put in the third low is the point I'm making.
But are we ignoring this one here, which was
No, because that would be a higher low. That would be a failed low. That would be kind of a failed bounce. You could still have a 1, 2, 3 third low. Okay,
so
that
we're
could still be a
saying
third
that
low.
basically the lower lows is still the predominant trend here. Even though
that's a different case of lower highs. Yeah, that's a different case. My point being is you have
highs.
potential for a triple bottom.
Yeah.
You still have potential for triple bottom, especially if you can hold support here. Because this is here where we are right now, these 4 candles right at 3,600. Because look at the prior consolidation we had back at the end of November. So you still have a case to be made there.
My fear about the triple bottom, Cheds, is that I think that if we start to get as closer to that 3150 area, it's almost one of those things where it's like, wow, we're back here again. We gave up this really good bounce we had when we got down here the first time. We were able to consolidate, and we were looking to expand. Failure of the ability to hold that higher low, even though that higher low, even though we're still back in that 3K. I mean, we're only $400 away from our bottom. It's so hard to put in a bullish case now.
Why not? I see one right now. You scroll out just a tiny bit, and let me show you. Why don't we just form a W? What if we just go a W? Well, you tell me if we didn't just... Here's our first low, okay? Here's our first low, okay, where you are. What is this? Here's our first low at 3,200, okay, Big Chonis? So draw me the V. Give me a V. Give me a big V. And clear all that. It's okay. It's okay. It's all good. You'll get... Okay. So here's the point I want to make. Okay, you could take... Okay, here's the point I make. Take the free... Just take the free drawing. No, not there. Remove that. Remove that. Remove that. Just one V here. I want to show you on the inside. Remove all that. Okay, just go like that. Nope, here, I got you, homie. How do we remove it? Just get that.
Nope.
All right, here's the V I want to show you. Look. Let's say this is your first bottom. Okay, you come back, you make a second bottom. Okay, that's called a W bottom. There's your first bottom. Now you turn this whatever bottom into a double bottom and you bounce. That's still quite bullish. And then you have your key level break right there. So that's very conceivable for me. It seems like that would be an obvious potential, actuality. What do you think?
The only thing I would push back on that is that we continue to have a declining volume profile. And that... Because let's just go back to this chance of this inverse head and shoulders that failed, because our shoulder here was basically supposed to have an additional higher volume as the market's more convinced that the higher low is going to hold. And that basically never was able to happen there. So because of that, the fact that getting back down to a retest of 3150 to me, in this current market structure we have, where if the market didn't feel there was a value of Bitcoin in the 4Ks, and now we're in the 3Ks, it almost feels like we could be testing those lower areas there. Just real quick here, I just want to check.
No, but you're saying, but what if we just make a double bottom out of it? I mean, what if you form that W bottom? Okay.
All right, so listen, let's just do a shout out here to our fans in the chat room here. Guys, we're so happy to have you. 134 of our closest friends. Remember, Super Chat is activated. Tips are always greatly appreciated. If you guys have any alt requests, just real quickly here, just want to give a nice little shout out here to some of my friends here in the chat here. We got Crypto Bro Bitcoin. We got, who else here? Carmen, hello. What's going on tonight? Thanks for joining us. Let's see who having Corrosion. What's up? Max Win. Bit Bookkeeper. How's it going? What's going on here?
And For Fun. What's up, For Fun? Appreciate you guys coming. Happy to be here. It's rare to be in Big Chonis studio, but I know a man loves his craft, and I appreciate checking out the studio. So what do you think, Big Chonis?
All right, hold on. So let's kind of do a recap here. So listen, we just closed out our daily candle. We're still in a very tight range here. I wanted to zoom into a lower time frame here and just talk about, this kind of price action we're seeing here, because this is one of those kind of stop loss hunting, really nasty candles here, especially on our hour chart that we've been watching for a while. I did put up this resistance line, Chad. I drew a few hours ago that we were kind of talking about. You know, we kind of keep bashing up here. I think it was in log is different. No, I don't know. But basically, we were watching to see this kind of consistent line here getting rejected once again. And our volume is just bupkis here. We're actually getting a lower volume profile as we got out the day. So one last thing here I want to mention is that we're thinking about trader psychology, and you know when this candle here that on the hourly closed very red with a sell-off here had you know mid candle was a very nice good looking green candle here, and you think about the thought process of it was that like, oh, we're about to break out, I want to get into this, when in actuality it was where a lot of people sold their longs and took profit. On the inverse here, these lower candles here, this was a very nasty red candle, intra candle, and in actuality, it ended up being a buying opportunity. So a lot about trading is almost doing the opposite of that initial human reaction.
I mean, that's just price elasticity, where you have kind of, when you're looking at a 1 hour chart, you can very easily find a range $100 where it looks like it's a big upper lower shadow. You know, it's price elasticity. I mean, if you're looking at candlestick theory, if you're looking at this, you know, I'm looking at all these volume candles. For me, I'm only really looking at this candle here from at the 1600 hour on January 10th. And if I'm playing classic candlestick theory, when we're bouncing here on the 11th of January, the middle point of this candle is where you're starting to think about resistance. So it's kind of your logical profit taking area. Just in the inverse, let's say like it was a big white Mariposa, a big white candle, and where's the support? You start to look at that midpoint of the candle. That's classic support. Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it. Just kind of, you know, how I look. Everyone looks at it differently. So you know, all these little candles, all these spinning tops, all these whatever these are, in this whole period here after this big red candle, this is where the volume is. So this is kind of what I'm really kind of looking at. And I want to see how the price is currently responding to this one candle. And it's kind of still how I'm looking at it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Do you think if we put in a lower, I mean, we've done two things here.
We broke the low. We broke the low. But on low volume.
But we actually had a nice initial bull snapback.
High wave spinning top.
At least they're not ready to capitulate just yet. And that is notable because, let's face it here, when we have such a violent breakdown like this, you know, and a very quickly one, this only took like a 12-hour span where we broke so violently in that moment there. It takes time for those kind of things to basically settle in, and that's kind of the thing that's going on there. So we'll get lots to talk about here. So, all right, a couple things more I want to go over in Bitcoin here. Listen, tomorrow we do close out our weekly candle here. We have about 24 hours to make this weekly candle you know, look a lot better than it currently does. And the reason I'm talking about that is a couple things here. We are very close to the bottom range of our candle this week. Remember, this week is the past 7 days of price action, and all the progress that Bitcoin was able to accomplish through this past 7 days of price action here. Look where we are now. We're doing a major bearish engulfing of not only just last week's you know, candle body, but the wick itself. And what's important is that what we're basically seeing is how important the support at $3,500 is, really just not to close below it. Because what's really important here is we see how this candle was only able to get up to the high of 35.90. When we were able to break bullish and had our back test to confirm that support, this candle got only as low as 35.67, the follow-up 36.25. So now when we're at a low of 35.57, we see how important what was major resistance is currently support, but boy, would it be very bearish if we're unable to close above that on this weekly candle.
So that's a great point. I mean, clearly the bulls have a much harder case to make if it breaks this level. I mean, it's bottom line. You have to start putting in higher lows. I mean, that's bottom line. I think we should also just kind of touch on the fact that we're near the 20-period moving average here in the weekly chart. We have the kind of big picture. If we're looking at a weekly chart, you know, we want to kind of also look at the bigger picture, and we are at the 20-period moving average on the weekly Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin. That's the big picture. Like Bitcoin, if you scroll out here,
20 period?
Yeah, sorry, 200. 200. We're at the 200 MA. Did I say 20?
You said 20 twice. Yeah.
It's your fault. You gave me like 6 beers, and you said we're going to do a show, and I don't even know where I am.
Well, listen, no, Cheds, I'm glad you brought up the 200 MA, because listen, let's talk about it. On a higher time frames, we talk about higher time frame MAs, right? Mm-hmm. So I remember this moment here when, as a community, we were all watching the 200 MA. It was right around 3180 area. And we broke it. We were broking it. We broke through it intra-week, and we're all like, oh my God, it didn't hold support. It didn't hold support. But then what actually happened was it created a monster bounce from that area there. So I'll say two things about the MA200. The first is how strong and how major and how important it is for it to hold. We see how strong of a support it actually acted. A double tap of it might act as initial support once again. Remember, it's rising, so every week here it's going to go up a little higher and a little higher and a little higher, ever so slightly.
But you want to stay above it. I mean, it's the bottom line. We're above it. We're still above it. We're near it. We're very far from it when we're at 20K, 10K, 8K.
Well, now the biggest thing is, as you said, if we broke it, and especially if we close below it. Now, the last thing you'll see about it is that we have historically closed below it back in our 2014, 2015 bear market. And a big interesting point about breaking above it after the break below was it actually was a good indicator that we were well out of our bear market and on the way to, Bitcoin 20K.
So you're describing a scenario where you have almost like a false bear break? Right, well, you were saying you were below it, and the fact that you're saying the fact that you went below it and then bounced illustrated the reversal. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but unfortunately, that took many months to play out.
Okay.
So, hey, listen, I want to take a look at the Bitcoin longs and shorts because we talk about if we can see if one side or the other is a little overextended or not. Will Christensen, thank you for your kind words, sir. Much appreciated. Remember, guys, Super Chat is activated. Tips are always greatly appreciated. If you guys have any alt requests, checking in here on Bitcoin's longs on Phoenix here. Now, it's kind of interesting.
Let me ask before you start, and
Yes.
I think I'm probably going to ask a question a lot of people would ask. And I know you understand this quite well. So if you're a bull, what do you want to see on the longs? You know what I mean? Because sometimes I get confused. Oh, the shorts are covering, or shorts are rising. If you're a bull, what do you want the longs to be doing? The BCTC longs.
Well, it's kind of a hard way to answer it based on how you phrase your question. If I'm a bull, if I'm a bear, I guess the thing is,
if you want the price to go up.
Well, it's what I'm seeing there. First tip of the night, Speedo Smith. Thank you, sir. I much appreciated, my friend. Thank you, my brother. So listen, I wanted to talk about there it is. You hear that?
Yeah, gotcha.
It showed on there. I'm gonna go back to the daily chart here for a second. So listen, a couple things here. This was longs loading.
Okay.
This is longs loading into Bitcoin still at around 6K, and then obviously they had to majorly capitulate as we fell through there. Okay, now The thing that's interesting here is we rose so much in this bullish move here that we've had the bounce currently off 3150. So what happens, Cheds? We break down 10% in Bitcoin. We go from 4K to 3550. The longs that basically were loading above 4K had to capitulate, but they didn't capitulate that much. Okay, they rose a lot here, and basically they kind of came down just a little bit here. Okay, so this tells me a couple of things. The longs are still pretty heavy, still pretty holding a good chunk of leverage, thinking that the supports of Bitcoin now are currently to hold
because they're high above their lows.
They're holding a higher above the lows, and they're holding a very astute thing here. And just the last thing I'll say is that the RSI on the daily is still above 50 at 54. So it's very interesting to see that the longs still are in a bullish stance, which basically is the assumption that Bitcoin is also in a bullish stance. Now we can compare that to what our shorts charts looks like, and this is kind of the interesting thing here. The shorts have really capitulated through this. Even that bear break we had yesterday, the shorts barely rose up here.
They're covering. They're taking their profit.
It's not covering.
No,
it's not covering because they basically were not even loading into this bear break. Bitcoin breaks bearish, and they're capitulating through it, except for this last little piece here, and then they gave a lot of that back.
What does that mean to you?
It means the shorts with a low RSI and reset oscillators have a less resistance to move higher.
Looks like shorts are going to bounce. Looks like shorts are going to go up. And why are they going to go up? Because the price is going up. Shorts go up as the price goes up.
Not all the time.
Because they expect it to short it down, right?
We're not seeing that now. We're almost seeing the shorts only begin to rise when the price of Bitcoin falls.
When the price falls.
Yes,
because they drop with the price dropping here.
They drop with the price. This is all 4K. Look what
That's what I'm saying. But it dropped with the price dropped and shorts dropped.
No, the bottom here.
Yeah.
Look at the 9th. Look where the shorts.
Oh, these are days.
These are days. So the 9th
shorts
was the bottom of the shorts. Okay. But Bitcoin hadn't broken bearish yet, and it was only where they started to turn here.
Yeah. Oh, the pizza's ready. I'll go get the pizza.
So the only one we actually had this. The point is, the shorts have running room.
Yep.
Okay. The longs have less running room.
Okay.
So the core, I feel, currently is in favor of the longs.
How many more sports analogies we can work in here?
Having running room, then the longs have room to go higher here. Doesn't mean either one can go in a different direction temporarily, but Bitcoin at 3608 here is kind of an area here where I'm feeling that. But here's the thing. I don't think we're going to fall through here like very quickly. There's still significant supports, even if we get down to $3,400 area and even just a little bit lower here, just because there was a battle before our final bottom here that was fought between the 3,250 all the way up to the $3,400 area.
Beautiful. I think that's great analysis. Big Chonis. You can find him on Twitter at Big Chonis. I am Big Cheds. Find me on Twitter at Big Cheds.
I want to do a quick thing, just do a quick rundown on a couple indicators real fast here, just to get a sense of where we are. I'm going to do a quick TD count here. I'm on the daily here. Currently on a red 4 on the daily, so we're mid-cycle. 12-hour, we're on, interesting. We're on a red 8 on the 12-hour. So we're getting towards the point of a little bearish exhaustion on the 12-hour time frame. We're still mid-cycle on the 6, and we're on a 6 on the 4. So everything is still kind of mid-cycle, except the 12-hour is still early in the 3-day, and the weekly, we're still in a green too, but that's not going to last long for going up for next week. And just quick check on the monthly here. I know we're still on a red 6 with running room, bearishly speaking there. Let's give that a close there. And listen, I wanted to bring up my EMAs here. I want to get rid of my 200 for just a moment. So back to my daily chart here. So a couple things here. We were very optimistic when the market was able to have this EMA cross here. And that was very interesting to see, because this was the last highest time frame that we were actually waiting for to see that cross actually happen. We actually broke bearish here with our bear cross. And what kind of stinks about this is it took us a while to basically establish these EMAs as support. Now they kind of act as resistance. So even if we are able to act just a little bit higher, these areas, especially the EMA 12, which is going to be our first resistance area, is going to be something that's going to hit us hard if the price action is able to get back up here. So far, this is just a bear, almost like a declining bear pennant. It almost looked like a bear flag. It almost looked like it was going to be a typical bear flag, but on the higher time frame here, this could actually range a little bit lower.
Can I just comment on that briefly, and I'll let you resume? I don't know that you have to define an exact pattern. I think the sense of it is you want to describe the price momentum and the price direction. And I like to say it's a bearish continuation pattern, because that's what it is, right? Because you have a prior trend, okay, you have a momentum behind that trend, and then the trend continues, Big Chonis. So that's kind of point I'm making. You're kind of laboring there on what exact pattern it is. I don't know that that's necessarily important unless it's a quiz, right? Unless it's a quiz or something, right? Big Chonis, unless it's a quiz, you have to name the exact pattern. The point I'm making, it's a bearish continuation pattern, is my opinion. But go ahead, please continue on your thought.
Let's just want to give a shout out to Demetrius with a very kind donation. Thank you so much, sir. Ethereum USDT on Binance, no problem, my friend. Thank you very much. Speaking about ETH, let's take a look at ETH and see what the alt market is happening. Now, before I get into ETH, let's talk about the big news story on ETH, and that's this fork happening in about 4 or 5 days, the old Constantinople. And what's going to be interesting in That event is, we talk about, like, in a low volume environment, how much news can drive a market and news can drive momentum. We've seen it when Ripple had a pop. We've seen it recently with Tron, because there's like a big Tron convention coming. So there was the news driven events that allow certain coins to have a momentum that they can kind of grab onto and basically keep it moving forward. So what do we have here? Well, we have ETH bottoming in the low $80 area and doing a full, 100% rise here. Much, much stronger than Bitcoin. And it's just interesting to see just how strong this was, because I remember a lot of the talk in crypto Twitter back when we were at the $80 mark and how it just kind of felt like this was going to completely fall off a cliff. But in those moments of extreme bearishness, of extreme oversold conditions, those are the moments where actually smart money begins to come in, and they are actually rewarded for that pretty handsomely.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you're talking about buy the blood, sell the whatever, sell the enthusiasm. But the point I was going to make is like Ethereum led the way in this bounce, because you had kind of this rounded bottom on Ethereum, then you had the head and shoulders, inverse head and shoulders breakout in Litecoin before Bitcoin was still a neckline, right? So like, we had Ethereum, and then it went Litecoin, then it was Bitcoin. Bitcoin kind of stalled out at neckline, right? So Ethereum made 100% move. So you have to kind of be realistic. Obviously, there's a big volume gap too. We pointed out at the resistance around 170, 165. So when Ethereum broke that 120, you knew it was going to go to 165 and run into trouble. It's 100% too. So you had that 100% move, and Ethereum is kind of, so when Ethereum then went Litecoin and when went Bitcoin. So right now, Ethereum needs to consolidate, obviously, but it's got some support. It should have some support because people loaded heavy, presumably under 100, right? We're talking about a double-digit Ethereum, right? You have to presume some of that are people who are going to buy and hold that, right?
I think what's notable is, as you have 100% gain in something, looking for that next leg higher before a significant pullback is something that's going to be something that you have to expect continuously here, looking for that next leg higher in Ethereum after hitting that 160 area and finding several days in a row of this candlestick rejection, continuously rejection here. There was just no buy support above. I think it got a little over 160 on the USD accounts. Looks like 159, so never really was able to get over 160. And was curious about that is the initial kind of rocket shot here, and the pullback showed a major strong resistance. Now, before we actually had that break, what we were watching for was some sort of a chance of some sort of an ascending triangle here, when we were putting in these higher lows and hitting this, very constant top area here. And normally when you see this, the constant bashing over resistance, the more times you do it, the more feeling you have that maybe we can actually break through it this time. That was basically short-lived. What's more important to me now kind of is trying to figure out, okay, where are those next areas of major supports that we're looking to hold because of this retracement and the severity of it here. So the first thing I'm looking at, I'm on the daily chart here, we're actually still in our bull cross from our EMA crossing here way back in December 26.
1226 EMA. What are these EMAs, Big Chonis?
Yes, they're EMA 12 and 26. Okay. I like using them. I like using they're my two low time frame EMAs, or low period, I should say, EMAs, but they're valid on any time frame you want. You just have to use them in the context of the time frame you're actually looking at. So basically what I'm saying here, even with this nasty bearish pullback, these are still in a bullish posture until they pull otherwise. We currently do have the bear cross in Bitcoin. We don't have it in Ethereum yet, mostly because of how bullish it was, and you actually have that running room there. Now, I want to do a fib retracement just to get a sense of exactly where we are currently on this entire pullback here. Now, so far in our pullback, okay, we're currently finding support where, I'll make sure I'm very accurate here to the penny. Right there. Good. Okay. All right. So we literally hit almost to the penny here, right at the 50% pullback overall. Now, Bitcoin has already retraced right at the 61.8. Now, currently the 61.8 for ETH is right around $111. Interestingly enough, let me clean this up here just a moment. Interestingly enough, that 110, 108 golden pocket ratio area here corresponds with our two major bottom tweezer here of support. Okay, as well as before we had our lows here, we did find a lot of significant chop in this area here with bottom wick support, which was held as support before it broke through. So there's a lot of history with ETH around the 110 area. And if a bearish continuation continues, I bet you there'll actually be a lot of buyers in the market willing to scoop up in this area, not just for the fib retracement, but just the historic price action in that area.
Well, and so like psychological support, Big Chonis, at 100. You're talking about 100 to 110. You know, a lot of people would think 100 is going to hold. You know, if you're a bull and you have a bull bias, you know, you're probably thinking 100 is going to hold. So it would correspond with that support you outlined, no?
No, because 100 and 110, you're talking about a 10%.
I mean, yada, yada. Okay, come on. What is this?
Hey, we're talking about, you know, a 10% move
if you're
with
going
leverage.
To 150, you're going to 150. If you're going to 160, if you're in test top of channel. I mean, if you're a bull, you're breaking up your buy anyway, right? You're not buying all in the first position, Big Chonis, right? I know you talk about this with your students. You break up your buys, you scale in. So if you're scaling, you start at 110, fine, you buy down to 100. I mean, what are we talking about here?
Well, okay, so let's say you're prepared to start to scale in at around the 110 area, and if and you're hoping that worst case you'll find like ultimate rock bottom support at 100
or 95, the little dip, right? The spring, right?
Now you're talking about 15%.
No, but that has to be a spring.
Zone.
You can always have a spring. You always have that false bear break. You can see a spring to 95.
So if you're going to do that, then by laddering, you should have the majority of your entry closer to that 95 area,
yeah.
and basically you start small as you scale in, and if you're going to try and catch that proverbial knife, you want to have most of your entry on the lowest possible point, and ideally you're not going to fill all your entries if you're basically laddering in that way, and that's fine. The key to laddering is to get a piece of it, because you're never going to try and catch the nut bottom if you're on a higher time frame. Low time frame scalps, you could try and snipe it like that. It's extremely difficult. So it's okay if you don't catch the extreme nut bottom there, but as long as you're in the range, giving yourself that running room with your stop loss to see if you can go higher here. I want to look at a couple more indicators with Ethereum just to get a sense of where we are here. Get rid of my artwork here. I want to bring up my Bollingers here for a second here. Now, unlike our Bitcoin Bollingers, we're actually still quite wide here. We see how much ranging we were able to do on the upper Bollinger here. We're unable to hold middle BB support. What's kind of interesting is we've yet to touch our lower Bollinger, and guess where the lower Bollinger currently is? It's currently right around that 110, 112 area and slowly declining here. So there's a lot of confluence in this 110, 111 area that if we're unable to hold in the 120s, that area should find the market at least a lot of buyers. Now, here's the catch, and here's why this is kind of tricky. There's a news-driven event specifically based on Ethereum in 5 days. Okay, now this is not a typical fork. This is not like the Bitcoin Cash fork. You're not going to get, hey Darcy, hey, what's going on? Hey, Mr. Jones, thanks for joining me tonight. This isn't the kind of fork where you get, you know, new coins. This is almost like like a software upgrade, if you will. But while that happens, they're going to be, you know, offline. I'm sure they're probably going to have to suspend ETH transactions for a while. So all these little disruptions and stuff do affect the price action and can affect volatility. You know, as traders, we love volatility. Okay, so who's to say if this market, if there's one more pop, I guess that's what I'm saying. Could there be one more nice pop in Bitcoin? Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, my friend. Much appreciated for the kind words. There's going to be one more pop in Ethereum before the fork. And then what happens after the fork? If the fork is a lot of the news-driven momentum that Ethereum has been able to kind of cling on to these past few weeks, when that fork is done with and over, and like a couple days later, you know, it's settled in and everything, now what we're talking about here, we're talking about a market, you know, basically back to Bitcoin, back to the Bitcoin chart, moving direction here. I shouldn't say that. The alts have been able to really capitalize on Bitcoin's bullish intentions with the supports being held. ETH is just like that. But when you lose the narrative of this news-driven moment about this fork upgrade, what's the bullish case for ETH after that? This big bounce was very nice and very beautiful, but you have to ask yourselves, are we going to see higher, there's higher highs from this, because of so much of this momentum has been lost in this current bearish move here on Bitcoin. So let's talk about this now from the retracement sense. If we are able to find support around the 110, 111 area, what we're going to be targeting basically is what are the areas that were basically used as support that failed in the past. And because of that, it'd be a very tight range here. Support at 110 could yield us very strong resistance, around the 120 area here. If we're holding support in this area here around 120, 125, for 3, 4, or 5 days, and then we fail to hold it, what was once support becomes resistance. So that's a possibility here. Let's look at a couple indicators here, see where we are on RSI at 44. We're sub 50, gave a lot of that back. We're currently corresponding in a previous historic zone. We flew up here so quickly, so there's not a lot of support room that can't say we can't fall down, just as quickly there. Now, a couple of good positive things here. We do see our Stoke, fell off a cliff there. We do have a pancake on our leading indicator, and our trailer is still coming down ever so slightly, but still trying to find that range. We are basically losing our momentum on our MACD. We're still in the upper range here, and we're starting a bearish histogram. And listen, I like to use my histograms here, not just for my indicators here, but for time spent above our bullish histogram. We have a situation here where 26 bars basically marked a bullish move here. We have another one here when 29 bars, marked a bullish move here, a positive histogram. And once again, we had about 30, 31 bars here, almost of bullishness before we went negative. Keep these cycle times in mind because they're pretty accurate. We normally have a good 30-day move when we go bullish before we take that inverse in hand. And sure enough, that current trend is still playing out right now. We've lost our bullish momentum on our OBV oscillator. We're currently in the negative here. And the CMF, which was holding in a positive zone here, is back below the zero line there. So that is notable as well. Do a quick TD count here on ETH, kind of see where we are, if anything stands out in the cycle. TD. Okay, so we're on a daily red 6, which could potentially tell us we got about 2 or 3 more days left of this here. Because we broke so bearish, but we're getting a tight count here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So this 122 area here is still very tight, but we still are in kind of a mid count. Now this is interesting here. We did put in pretty defined almost perfected 9 here on the 12-hour, and we actually have a first green 1 here. But oh, look at that! It's just on the edge here. It goes from green 1. Look at that, green 1 to, and because of that 1, 2, 3, 4, we're just right there. Anything below 122.69. So we're flirting with potentially a price flip on our 12-hour, but you can see how close we are. We just started this 12-hour too. Got a long ways to go. 6-hour, we're still mid-cycle on a 3, and 4-hour on a 3, and the 1. Interesting here. We did finish a 1-hour 9 cycle, so I expect a little support here, actually. Just short term. I don't think we're going to fall through just yet, but this is telling us a little bit of bearish exhaustion just in the low time frame here on the hourly chart. So we might find a little stability here, still in the very low 120 area here. Nothing big changing overall. And lastly here, let's do a quicker kind of higher scale sense here. There we go, of our weekly chart here. And listen, a couple things here. So weekly chart, very similar candles to what Bitcoin was putting in here. We got this bearish engulfing candle. What is notable though is we have right there, we're just right on where we can't lose that support on the 120, corresponding with this candle here. It's high. Where are we here? 116.96. So breaking that 160 tomorrow close would be very bad. Really, what we want to do is at least call the low of 111.22, which would be a great place to bounce if we get down there. So if we drop on there, 10% or so, it could be a very interesting area to see. Now, Donnie, that's a very good question. Who is shorting here? Oh, Speedo, thank you, my friend. Absolutely, look at EOS. So, very interesting question about, who's shorting here? Is it an area here where it's really risky to short? Because listen, we just had this big pullback here, and now we're basically looking to see if we can expand from this. I don't think, as I said, we're going to fall super bearish super quickly, but the fact that we're just going to shoot rocket ship back up based on our volume profile is a little to be suspect. So, yeah, that's what I'm seeing at ETH. Keep an eye on it, though. I expect there's a possibility because of the news event Wednesday, Thursday. It's going to be the news. And whenever news brings attention to a specific coin, there's always a chance for volatility. All right, let's check out EOS for my man Speedo Smith. Thanks again for that donation, my brother. EOS. So we'll do two. We'll do the EOS BTC here. Check this guy out here, and then we'll look at the USD one here. So BTC
weekly time frame.
Yeah, we close the weekly candle tomorrow. What really stands out to me here is how consistent this rejection area, about 7,400 Satoshi.
We have clearly defined resistance.
Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row.
Right. So we can. What does that mean in my view? My view is that once you can break that level, that's a signal. What I see is a potential for a future signal. Right. That when I interpret a chart, I want to try to look for clear signals. I don't want to overinterpret. I want to look for what stands out. And I think you're correctly pointing out that the price is having trouble there, where the bears are rejecting higher prices. So if you can break that level, it could potentially come support on a back test, as you pointed out.
What's interesting to see is how closely EOS has been mirroring Bitcoin as well. A very similar, chart. I remember this very sideways type price action, kind of like when Bitcoin was at 6K. Very similar bear break. There's a nice bounce there. We actually saw a very good percentage gain with EOS. Now, EOS was one of the top 10 at one time, and because of that, a lot of the price action based on the dollar was something I used to follow. Remember when EOS was like $6 or $8, something like that. Something's losing. So what are we seeing here on our daily EOS chart? Well, very first thing here, a lot of these charts look very similar. We're basically riding our lower Bollinger Band, expanded a little bit here. Interesting to note, don't get outside of the lower BB. Very rare. Okay, and to be outside there for those 3 candles there, similar to what happened with Bitcoin's break, outside the lower Bollinger, we were able to get back up there. So resistance here around the $4 range, supports on the 150, and I've personally felt, and I'm not going to like this here, EOS just went parabolic. It went from 44 cents to $18, pulled back, and then had a second jump to $23. I mean, just an amazing parabolic move. And what's scary about this is that it ran this so quickly from 44 cents, all the way up to, 3-4 bag very quickly here. Now, currently, where are we finding support? I have a lot of artwork here from previous times here. I think it's so interesting to talk a look about this wick here. Let me thin this out just a bit here. This wick right here, which was resistance, right at $1.45, and how we touched it almost to the penny here when we kind of came in here, just a little above it there. So this was very strong resistance back in October 17, turned into support when we broke bullish above it. The thing about EOS, though, is that it never had a market price discovery. It was very quick that it just went supernatural, and because of that, I'm not even personally convinced that the 50-cent zone overall is going to be a strong point. This project had so much money, and they just burned through so much of that. The chart looks very similar to Bitcoin's chart, and because we close out this current weekly candle tomorrow, It's interesting to see that we're still holding around this really, breakneck price there. So we really want to hold above $2 there. That will keep us going strong there. Let's go to the daily chart and see if there's anything changing.
What keeps you going strong, Big Chonis?
What are we drinking tonight? We got Sam.
Yeah.
Sam, what was the other one there? The what you said or something?
Flannel t-shirt or something.
So EOS chart, very similar to Bitcoin's chart. Here's our consolidation. And for a while there, it looked like we were kind of do that expansion. The upper wicks here were notable, is that the price action was just not able to get above $3. Every time it broke the $3 range, it was basically shot down as very stiff resistance. See, we're still mid-cycle on our TD count. Still mid-cycle there. Yeah, nothing really interesting there. So the very similar mid-cycle count, very tight price action here. And listen, it's been a very similar chart as what's going on with Bitcoin there. So yeah, my 2 cents. I did not inhale, but that's kind of the thing you want to keep an eye on that. So let's keep an eye on that as well. So let's check on. What did I want to do? Oh yeah, I wanted to bring up my cloud because we haven't talked about the cloud tonight, and let's see if we have any interesting thing here. Then we'll go back to Bitcoin here and see what the cloud actually looks like on Bitcoin. So it looks like the 12-hour is a really good interpretation of what we're seeing on our cloud here. We were able to get into our cloud after finding the initial rejection, finding it as support, riding our lower cloud support, riding our Tenkan-sen support. Okay, now here's what's scary. Not only do we fall through our cloud, but we're actually finding Kaijin-sen resistance. Okay, so what was major support is now major resistance. And I heard the...
Don't worry, what else you got?
Who was that? I missed that. I didn't see who that was. Oops.
Don't worry about what were you saying?
Streamlabs, that's it. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, buddy. Oh, I see. Interesting. My brother, much appreciated. My friend. Thank you, Ryan. So what was major support is now major resistance. I don't like that because this is our Kaijin is just, it's strong resistance there. And what we really wanted to see is, so, the reason this cloud here is so big is because the bear break was so big. So it allowed this cloud to grow massive.
What were the names again? You were telling me earlier. Just the names of upper and lower here on the cloud.
Mm-hmm. So
span A and span B, was that right?
Because we're in a bearish cycle, the span A is our green line here, and our span B is the red. Now, if we did a cloud twist or a Kumo twist, it would be inverse there. And basically what this means is that our span A here is supposed to be easier to get into, and our top line here is actually supposed to be stronger resistance. And on the inverse there, it becomes stronger support. So we're able to get a stronger support. And to get that cross, we have to have that continuation of bullish expansion. Something similar to the 6-hour here, okay, where we did have our bullish cross. And interesting enough, we are currently, this is exactly what I was talking about on 12-hour, what we want to achieve on a 12-hour, we're just hanging on to on our 6-hour here, where we are finding span B support because of this bullish Kumo twist there we had on our 6-hour chart. Let's go back to Bitcoin and let's take a look at our cloud action on Bitcoin. So I've got the 6-hour chart here. Okay, now unlike EOS, which was still in the cloud on the 6-hour chart, Bitcoin is not. Bitcoin is actually finding a 6-hour cloud resistance, okay, span B resistance, especially with this candle here. We tried to get back into it. We got back into it for the first time there. And what happened? It just fell through. So this is more of a bearish stance here on the 6-hour chart. Let's see what our 12-hour looks like. Just as our EOS chart was, we're seeing Kaijin resistance here. Okay, not only just that, our price action is much lower than that. Remember, any bullish pop we try and get through, okay, just we had support in our cloud becomes resistance. It makes that, $3,800 area, $3,750 area. Those areas will become resistances once again if we are able to retest them on these time frames here. And checking out the daily. Now, it was so encouraging for so many days here to have Tenkan-sen support on the daily. I remember this day we opened outside of it, but actually were able to bullishly bust through and continuation on. And we were targeting our cloud because every other altcoin was able to get into the cloud on the daily, except for Bitcoin. That's why that $4,400, $4,300 area was such an area that we felt we could really, achieve, but we're unable to. Now we're just lost our 10 cent support, and this looks pretty bearish on our daily here. Now, we wanted that expansion because we wanted to do a hey, give me a beer.
Yeah.
We wanted to see that twist actually follow through. Now we're actually expanding our bearishness here on our daily because of that bear break there, and that is kind of notable there. Let me go into a lower time frame here, 4 hour. And I love my 4 hour. It's so very accurate. Find that support, getting above it here. Now once again resistance, and because of this we've had a bearish Kumo twist here, okay, with expanding red cloud forming for future potential resistance. And just real quickly here, the 1 hour. Now, because we've been doing all this sideways price action here, the 1 hour cloud is actually kind of valid, because when you do those sideways and you don't really have a large range, it's those lower time frames that are going to show you the most accuracy, because it's just, you know, like $100 range in either direction here. So what are we seeing here? Well, we're seeing a declining pattern of resistance where our resistance is falling lower, where it's 3,700 here, but in a couple days from now, 36 is then falling there. We are currently finding 10 cent support. I'd like to maintain that. Thank you, my brother. And see if we can actually build on that support here. Our volume profile just continues to be bupkis on our hourly chart here as we range sideways here. So you got to ask yourself, as we go into Sunday, we're always on these lower time frames on the Sundays here.
What's the volume overall? I know you look at CoinMarketCap sometimes, Big Chonis.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where are we at kind of historically on volume? Like, just kind of, if you could frame it for us.
Well, I think the biggest thing with CoinMarketCap still continues to be our Bitcoin dominance at 52.4%. It's still an area here where alts have a significant amount of money in them still. You know, Bitcoin with a market cap of 63 billion. Ripple and ETH basically tied for second, and then Bitcoin Cash, ABC, EOS, Stellar kind of tied for third. They're all around $2 billion. So the thing that's interesting here is that our volume, 14 billion 24-hour crypto volume, very low. Bitcoin volume 4.6 billion, very low there. So we're still in an area here where we're just not seeing about that next kind of moment here. Now, what we've seen in the past is a declining volume profile actually precedes a bigger move in price action. So as our volume declines, we normally tend to see that ramp up begin to happen. And that ramp up that happens is because there's either a kind of an agreement that the selling has dried up or the buying has dried up, and that can basically swing in both directions there. So the thesis overall is short term, we have minimal supports right above this 35 area here. We keep finding support. Every time we keep breaking into the $3,500 range, we keep finding those supports.
So let me just jump in. So are you trading anything right now? Like, what are you personally doing, or what do you know, what's your feel, in that?
So, Cheds, we talk about, and we were kind of talking about this analogy when it comes to poker, about where position and putting yourself in the best position is such an important
or taking advantage of your position, right? And correctly recognizing the value or the potency of your position, right? For example, like in poker, we talk about how when you're in early position, that's a weaker position. You're going to play really tight. And when you're later in position, you're on the button, you can loosen up, you can be more aggressive. And you can essentially think about trading rather, not poker. You can think about trading in that way, where you can wait for that really, really good hand and then go for it.
And that's the key word there, Cheds. Waiting for your best risk versus reward entry. Having that good position while being dealt, pocket aces, something along those lines. So if you're asking me, and again, we talk about style. Some people like to scalp. Some people like to scalp. Some people like to do quick trades in and out. Some people like to take longer term positions. All about the setup. And right now, I don't like the setup. Okay, as we talked about earlier in the show, there's a thought that I could see Bitcoin going back down to 3,400 region before it finds the next area of support. Any bull break that goes higher is going to find stiff resistance as we get it closer to the $3,800 region, and because of that tight range, it's not the kind of trading environment I like to trade in. I like to personally wait for a better setup of extremes, either extreme overbought, oversold, and take advantage of the market being too leveraged on one side or the other.
Okay, so where are we though in the channel? What's our position in the channel right now? Right? What's our RSI? Where are we in the channel?
I think the word is neutral. I think the word is neutral because what has this bear break done? Well, basically, it's put us back to a ranging where we're finding, resistance above 30, below 38, and support above 35. So a $250 range there of strong resistance and support in either direction doesn't give us the clarity we're looking for. Breaking below one of them or above one of them begins to set a trend maybe forming, and we're not seeing that yet.
So you're arguing for a tightly defined channel. I'm thinking. So for me, I'm kind of looking at it also as a general principle. When you have a pattern, you have here potentially we had our inverted head and shoulders. So when you have a bullish reversal pattern break down, that's kind of a bearish, bearish emphasis. Similar to when you have a head and shoulders top and the bulls just bust right through that right shoulder. That's a pretty enthusiastic bull signal. So if we are watching right now the breaking down, the degradation, if you will, of that inverted head and shoulders, right shoulder breakdown, we're looking at testing the head line. There's no neckline anymore. We're talking about the headline support. If this breaks down, where are we going? I would argue still 2970. Weekly support at the highs back from the June, July of 17 and the low of September 17, right in that area that you and I have talked about before. So I can potentially see that right around the 200 period moving average.
It's interesting you bring that up because I put out a tweet about that last night, and what's so interesting is how interesting and how close these mirror each other here. We had a very similar price action.
Different context though. One came from a bounce. One came from a decline, from a pullback.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but for me, it's like what jumps out is it's just a different context. So you're obviously describing potentially a similar consolidation pattern before I interrupted you, but the first consolidation pattern above the first face, the guy with the hand over his mouth, that's in the context of a bounce. And the second one is in the context of a pullback from a rejection. But go ahead. That was just what jumped out to me. So therefore, I would try to avoid comparing them so much to one another because they're from such a different context, and they're reacting to such different price environments. That's kind of what I'm trying to say.
Well, I think that's my point, though, is that they're almost the mirror opposites. We have a context where we're going in a bullish uptrend here, where we're consolidating in a tight range, $3K to $4,400-$4,500 before that breakthrough. Fast forward a year, we're back in the same price range, and we're putting in, I don't know if the timing's going to be the same. I don't know if we're going to see the same, July through August time period, 2-month time period, which we're kind of at right now, to tell you the truth. If we fall through, my overall point, and this kind of falls into what Ched just said about that, what you said, 2970 area, Ched?
Yeah, roughly, exactly.
Okay. So that basically corresponds with breaking the current area we're in and basically hitting the top of that next zone, which is that, let's call it sub 3,000 area there. And frankly, for me, Ched, just as we basically entered this zone,
the purple zone, this purple rectangle area,
and we're able to get to the bottom of it here, right. And then again here, I don't see why we can't do the very same thing if a break of 3K is possible.
So that would make sense. So you break 3K, we find support at like 1,800.
1,800
and then you kind of consolidate in there. Okay, I could see that as well. I could see a secondary continuation pattern.
Yeah.
Prior, similar to what we had back here in July of 17, Big Chonis.
Now remember, we're in this bear market. This has taken us, a year to get to this point here from our top areas there. So we're just using, previous price history. We're using previous historic price history because it's the only thing that we can really judge based on what happened the last time we were in this specific area. So we know what happens. We find resistance here, we find support here, and now we're doing the complete inverse. We're now finding resistance that used to be support, and we're finding support that really kind of allowed us to find that continuation. We're doing the complete inverse here, and a break of this area, bringing in that sub 3K. I have no doubt, because we're now entering this whole zone here, the bottom of the zone found very strong support at $1,700. Just as we found support here at around the $3,100 area, where we had found that support candle wick. If we are unable to hold 30, these targets for sure can be in play over the next several months. Until we stop putting in lower lows, okay, 4,400, 4,200, 4,100, and now we're currently back in the threes. Until we stop doing that, okay, this bear market, our overall major line of resistance, which is our purple line here, started at 20K, rejected at $6,300 there, and once again, very strong rejection right here. We can't get through this vector here of resistance. We're not going to go higher. And the volume continues to be suspect. Even though it's been steady, we're still putting in this lower profile. And so far, all of our major volume was bearish. This reaction here, okay, allowing the market to prime of this bearish move to unleash with a correction, is still so far what we're seeing. Just a dead cat bounce correction from a very oversold condition in Bitcoin. Until proven otherwise, until higher lows and higher highs are the name of the game, the bears are going to continue to have this kind of advantage here. Cheds, let's wrap it up.
No, but just real quick, I want to make a point. You're pointing to a very important general principle. You said just assume the bears are in control. So you always want to assume that the prior trend is the trend until it changes. So you have to, when you're trying to interpret price movement, you have to always take into concept what the prior trend is. So you have to, yeah, the current trend, the current trend. So you have to, if bears are in control, they're in control until proven otherwise. And if you're lucky, you can force sideways before you can potentially bounce, right? And you're forcing sideways. What does that mean? You're establishing support. Sometimes you have a big lower shadow. Sometimes you have a big hammer. Other times you don't. Other times you have, inverted hammer. So it all kind of depends how it plays out, but you have to go sideways first. But anyway, I think it's great we were able to come together. Like I said before, you have a really great studio here. I have to tell you, though, next time your guards frisked me on the way in, I don't appreciate how physical they were. But other than that, I think it was a good time. And tell your chauffeur I do not need a ride home. Go ahead.
Cheds, I do keep a tight ship here at the hacienda here. So listen, guys, I want to thank you guys for sticking around with me tonight. I'm here with my buddy Big Cheds. Been watching some football today, having a couple beers, and just kind of enjoying the day. And we thought we'd talk about some Bitcoin with you fine folks on this Saturday evening, January 12th, 2019. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, you guys can follow me on Twitter. If you guys enjoyed this content, please give me some love. Give me a thumbs up. All right. Thank you guys so much for the tips tonight. You guys, I'm so grateful for those. I put these shows out to inform, to give you my thoughts on the current market, and to kind of help you, get a sense of some of the TA and stuff that I like to use. So I hope you guys got something out of it. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any interest in my online mentoring. I got some open spots for next week. Remember to follow my buddy here, Big Cheds, as well. And Cheds, is something else to say?
Hold on. Look, if you guys are, like, I'm serious, if you guys like, if you like the attention, that one-on-one attention, someone who's going to stop and talk to you, going to listen to you, like, this guy's really good with these one-on-one mentoring sessions. So, I mean, you know me, I'm not going to say something I don't believe. So, that's just kind of what I wanted to say. Go ahead.
Thanks, big buddy. Much appreciated there. So, guys, stay safe here. Remember, tomorrow we're going to close out our weekly candle. Right now, our weekly candle looks very nasty, bearish, engulfing, and talked about earlier in the show how important it is to hold at least above this 3580 area to at least show that we're able to find what was major resistance, can still be thought of as support. That area has held for 3 weeks in a row right now. Okay, the bull break, the back test, and once again, very important to hold this 35 area. Breaking below that, and there's a very good chance we can actually potentially break through it to lower lows. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Darcy. Thank you, Fearsall. Thank you, Luke. Thank you guys. You guys are great. You guys have a great Saturday. I'll probably come back to you guys on Sunday tomorrow to kind of give you a wrap up what's going on, and we'll see what's going on. Until then, until next time, it's Big Chonis signing off. Peace.